Hey guys, James here again with another Civ 6 guide, and today I want to talk about one of my favorite parts of the game, Spies. In this video, I'm going to go over the basics of Spies, as well as showing off some testing I performed with Spies in an attempt to better understand them and bust some myths. But first, what is a spy? Like the ever-annoying knight who prevents you from collecting on your 6 wheat in Catan, Spies are one of Civ 6's main comeback mechanics. With Spies, you can perform a number of cool missions. These basically help to delay and annoy enemies who are ahead, while also allowing you to slowly catch up. Spies become available in the Renaissance era with the Diplomatic Service Civic. This allows you to build one spy, with more becoming available in later civics and technologies. Unlike other units, you can only train a spy using production, and they do take a bit of time to train. A spy as a unit would probably be the most similar to a traitor, as it is a unit you control through movement into cities and selecting missions to conduct. Once the spy is ready, you find yourself with a recruit. You can then send this recruit to one of your own cities to counterspy, or an enemy city, or city-state for more offensive missions. Honestly, this screen alone makes Spies so powerful. Being able to see exactly what everyone has can be very useful to get a sense of someone's strength. Keep in mind you can only send spies to cities you've discovered, so be sure to keep scouting the map. You have to have vision over a city center in order to spy on it. So you see here in this example, since I've discovered Seoul and Gwangju, these are the only 2 cities I can spy on. Then, after discovering Pyongyang, our spies are now able to enter that city. All that being said, the city we want to target here today is going to be Seoul, because it has one of every spyable district, and we're going to run some tests. Let's send our spies over, and you'll notice that the game will tell you how many turns it will take for your spy to reach a specific city. Now that our spy is here in Seoul, I want to test out some interactions to learn more about how exactly spies work. Real quick though, for some of the newer players in the channel, let's run through what each mission does at a high level. Gain sources. This is conducted in the city center. Spies in the city will operate at 2 levels higher for 24 turns. This has a 100% success rate with no risk of being discovered. We're going to do some tests with this later to see just how strong we can make our spies, so stay tuned. Listening post. This is also conducted in the city center. It increases diplomatic visibility with civs by 1 rank. It also has a 100% success rate and no risk of being discovered. And so you might be asking, what is diplomatic visibility? And honestly, even I'm not super sure. But based on my current understanding, it's a number that represents how open 2 civs are to each other and can be determined through their history with delegations, embassies, trade routes, borders, and maybe some more. Higher diplomatic visibility should let you access better gossip to let you know what enemies might be building or how they're feeling. In my opinion though, I probably wouldn't use this option very much unless I was really far ahead and just wanted to keep an eye on things. Siphon funds. So this one is conducted in commercial hubs. The spy will steal the gold income of the city accumulated for the duration of the mission. Siphon funds is a very important mission, and we're going to do some more testing on it later, so stay tuned if you want to learn how it works. Great work heists. These are conducted in theater squares. The spy will attempt to steal a great work residing in this district, which means to conduct this, the city has to have a great work to begin with. The spy will prioritize great works of writing, then art and artifacts, and finally, music. Sabotage production. This is conducted in industrial zones. The spy will sabotage all buildings existing in the district at the same time. The district itself will still be available and intact, but the workshop and factories within will need to be fixed. Steal tech boosts. This is conducted in campuses. You steal the Eureka for a technology you have not yet discovered. This is very useful for catching up if you're behind and will be one of the main missions you'll want to be running at higher difficulties. Recruit partisans. This is conducted in a neighborhood. The spies will cause 2 to 4 barbarian units to spawn around the district to wreak havoc on the area. This pillages the neighborhood district, so spies can't spam this mission, which actually used to be an issue I believe, and is a reason why I don't really build neighborhoods personally. Disrupt rocketry. This is conducted in the spaceports. The spy will sabotage the district, and any science victory project is postponed until it's repaired. Again, this is very useful if you need to delay other people from finishing science victory missions. Foment unrest. This is conducted in the city center. The spy will reduce the city's loyalty by 25. However, you cannot stack this to cause massive loyalty loss, and in my experience in multiplayer games, if someone else conducts the mission first, your spy seems to fail their mission. Regardless, this can be useful if you have cities you want to try and flip. Neutralize governor. This is conducted in the city center. The spy incapacitates the governor in the city for 5 turns. Again, I think you'll probably want to do this if you have a city you want to flip, or perhaps you want to knock out Pingala or some other important governor. However, I feel like this mission is very situational. Fabricating scandals. These are conducted in city-states. The spy will remove 2 envoys from the top-ranked civ at the city-state. This includes you. Breach dam. This is conducted in dams. The spy will pillage the district, causing a flood and leaving the city vulnerable to future floods. So let's first set the baseline. Here's a recruit's hit rate for each mission in a completely undefended city. Of course, you'll notice that siphon funds and foment unrest start off with the highest percentages, while recruiting partisans is the most difficult to accomplish by default. So for now, let's set the recruit partisans hit rate of 25% as spy level 0, the lowest default level a spy can perform tasks. Then we'll label all other hit rates as level 1, level 2, and level 3. Next, let's see the hit rates after your spy has gained sources in the city. Based on this, we're able to see that all missions follow the same hit rates at each level, and here we get a better sense of the higher spy levels. With gained sources, we're able to determine what level 4 and level 5 spy activity is like. Okay, so before we continue these experiments into hit rate, let's talk siphoning funds. Siphon funds is such an important spy mission for a couple of reasons. As you saw before, siphon funds and foment unrest have the highest default hit rates of all spy missions. Siphon funds becomes extra valuable when you consider the fact that, in my experience, completing it the first time guarantees your spy a level up. Gold has a very concrete value as well and can be useful in pretty much any situation. But how exactly does siphon funds work? Even after playing the game for so long, I never really got a clear answer as to what this mission does during its duration. Does it actively siphon gold per turn? Does it take it all in a lump sum when finished? Let's use our spy here to test out how siphoning gold actually works. So here I have a recruit in Seoul with sources. When I select the Siphons Fund mission, it says that it'll take 8 turns to siphon 680 gold. This means that we're getting 85 gold per turn from this. When I switch over to Korea, I see that Seoul as a city is generating 84 gold per turn, so that leads me to believe that this number is where the amount siphoned originates from. When I selected my focus on Seoul to target gold, my Russian spy was able to see the changes to the siphoning gold mission immediately. After switching to the gold focus, we're seeing a 920 gold reward instead. This means 115 gold per turn for 8 turns. On the Korean side, here we see Seoul is producing 114 gold per turn. So after initiating the mission, I tracked the total gold and gold per turn for each civ in order to identify any deviations, and what I discovered was interesting and not exactly what I was expecting. For the turns immediately after beating the mission, neither civ had any notable differences in their gold or gold per turn. There were small swings due to population and border growth and maybe some rounding errors, but nothing really seemed out of the ordinary. Then, on turn 553, our mission ended and we received a message saying that our spy was successful. It finally happened. That turn, Russia, the civ who had siphoned the funds, jumped up 680 gold up from expected, matching the amount noted when the mission first started. On the other hand, that turn, Korea was 83.7 gold under the expected amount. I kept the turns going to see what would happen, and what I found was that for the next 8 turns, Korea was consistently around 84 gold under what they should have been, even though their gold per turn was indicating no changes. So what does this mean? This essentially shows that after the game decides whether the mission was successful, the offensive civ gets a lump sum immediately, while the actual siphoning then starts for 8 turns, making the city lose pretty much all its gold generation, pending any sort of fluctuation on things you build or things you might improve. In theory, with some luck and enough spies, you could very easily cripple an enemy civ's economy with this. Unfortunately, I don't really have enough computers or manpower to properly test what might happen if one civ gets targeted by multiple civs, but I think it'd be interesting to learn. Can this siphoning actually stack? I think it's also useful to know that if you were siphoned, your actual gold per turn will be down from the one shown in the game. So now that we understand how siphoning funds works, let's take a look at how counterspying and policies affect our hit rates. One of the big questions I always had was how exactly does counterspying work, and are the effects actually visible? One thing to note for those who don't know is that counterspying a district will also protect all districts next to it. This makes it so that a good sim city, that meaning good city and district placement, can really help in protecting you against enemy spies. In order to test counterspying, I have a recruit here in Seoul. Meanwhile, on the other end, I have a spy who is in the city of Seoul, but not actively counterspying. As we can see, based on the hit rates, it doesn't seem like there's any sort of visible effect. Next, I've initiated the counterspying mission this turn on the commercial hub. Therefore, we should pay particularly close attention to the hit rates on the spaceport, commercial hub, and campus. Again, here we see that there's no visible effect. I press next turn just so our counterspy's been officially established in the district for a turn, and again, there was no visible change to our hit rates at all. Even after putting multiple counterspies covering multiple districts and spies with counterspying upgrades, there seems to be no visible indication that our spying has been affected. Essentially what this means is that offensively, you have no real way of knowing if an enemy counterspy is in a specific district. Unfortunately, since the math does seem to be hidden, unless someone knows any way for me to see the values, it can be a little bit difficult for me to conclude how much of an effect counterspying actually has, and whether or not stacking counterspies actually works. However, based on the numbers we've seen and numbers we test later on, I'm going to assume that counterspying lowers an enemy's spy operating level by 1 or 2, potentially getting higher with certain upgrades. Even so, counterspying in my experience does not guarantee that you'll stop an enemy. Okay, so now that we know how siphoning funds and counterspying works, let's take a look at some spy upgrades and policies. Since our spy here has finished their siphoning funds mission, they've obtained a promotion. Normally you'd only be able to select from 3 random upgrades, but for the sake of testing, I have the non-state actors policy enabled, which is a late game policy allowing you to choose from any available spy promotion. The first thing to note is that even though my recruit has obtained a promotion, they technically aren't an agent until you actually spend the promotion. Even though I have the promotion available, my hit rates don't actually update until I level up. This means that saving upgrades might not be very viable, as the spy will suffer from lower hit rates until you actually use it. For the sake of testing, I'm going to give this spy the Ace Driver promotion, which grants the spy a higher chance of escape if caught. This is because I don't want to affect any of the default spy level values. After promotion, we can see the hit rates for an agent without sources. Based on this, it seems that leveling up increases all spy levels by 1 level. After agent, there are 2 more promotions to Secret Agent and Master Spy, both of which further increase all spy levels by 1 each. With a little math and double checking the game, that means the default values of a Secret Agent and Master Spy are as follows. You might notice that no missions seem to go over a 90% success rate. Good eye, and I'll explain a bit more around that shortly. So going back to our agent, let's also run sources just for a sanity check. Again, everything here seems to check out. This tier does bring us to an interesting case with siphon funds though. At this point, we're under the assumption that our spy is operating at level 6 siphoning funds, starting at level 3, getting 1 level from promotion, and then 2 levels with sources. However, if you've played a couple of games now, you might have noticed that no spy, regardless of the level, will have a hit rate that goes above 90%. So in order to test this, I reloaded the game, and this time around I gave our spy the Con Artist promotion. This bumped her to default siphoning funds level 6 and makes her capable of reaching level 8 with sources. Here are the rates by default with no sources. Note how siphon funds at level 6 now has a 90% hit rate. Then, after completing the Gain Sources mission, we can see that all other missions have increased in success rate by 2 levels as expected, but siphoning funds has stayed at 90%. This tells us that 90% is the highest visible hit rate. Whether or not our actual hit rate is this displayed number, I'm not as sure. One of the most important policies I used during the filming of this video was the cryptography policy. For those who don't know, it's unlocked at the Cold War Civic and reduces enemy spy levels by 2 in your lands. It also increases your spy levels by 1 for offensive operations. We're now going to have Korea activate the cryptography policy, and once we click into the spy, we instantly see the numbers have been updated, and most of the hit rates are back to the default agent hit rates. This tells us 2 important things. Firstly, the effects of the cryptography policy are instant and visible. This means that if you ever notice your spies are operating at a lower level than expected, it probably means the enemy has cryptography active. Secondly, we see here that despite everything else dropping, Siphon Funds has managed to stay at the 90% hit rate. This tells us that while there is a cap on the hit rate of spies at 90%, spies can still go over level 6. Deductions to their effectiveness will bring them down in level, but as long as a spy is level 6 or above in a skill, they'll max out their ability to conduct the mission. This means that the 2 levels more experienced upgrades and increasing your spy level can help give them a buffer against cryptography, counterspying, and polygraph, which we'll talk a bit more about later. So based on these tests, we've updated the spy rate table to this. So now that we've seen the maximum ability of spies, next we need to see the minimum. To help with this, we have another important upgrade to point out. This is polygraph. This makes it so that when a spy with this promotion is in your home territory, enemy spies in your lands operate at 1 level below usual. So here again we have a recruit in Seoul, this time with sources. However, you'll notice that the spy is operating at 1 level below expected. This is because prior to this turn I had a spy with the polygraph upgrade hidden in another city in Korea. Then, if I move that spy out of Korea, you'll see that clicking back into the spy instantly updates the hit rates that same turn. Again, this tells us that similar to cryptography, polygraph's effect is instant and visible. Let's reload again, and this time we have a recruit in Seoul with no sources and Korea activating cryptography. As you can see, all hit rates have been dropped by 2 levels. Based on this data, we can update the spy rate table to this. This is where we start getting into some interesting territory. Here we have level -1 and -2, which I'll call N1 and N2 for simplicity. We learned here that spies can go below the 25% baseline that we set earlier. But can we go deeper? Let's get polygraph in the mix. Here I promoted an agent in Korea with polygraph, and again, we see that all levels are knocked down by 1 level. Here we discover level N3, which has a pretty sad 4% hit rate. And now you'd think, this has to be the minimum, right? As far as I'm aware, there aren't any more policies or upgrades that'll affect the rates in the same way. However, this is when I learned something very interesting. In a completely unplanned test, I decided to try and upgrade multiple spies with the polygraph promotion, and what we discovered was pretty insane. In this first shot, we have a recruit with no sources, and Korea has 1 spy with polygraph hidden away. As expected, all rates were decreased by 1 level. Then, after upgrading another spy with polygraph, we see that again, all rates were decreased an additional 1 level. This means that the polygraph upgrade actually stacks. Here I have a recruit with no sources in Seoul, and Korea has the cryptography policy and 2 polygraph upgrades. Here we find level N4, which has a pitiful hit rate of 2%. Then, when I upgrade a 3rd spy with polygraph, we see the rates drop again. However, here we see that the recruit partisans does not go below the 2% hit rate. So, in order to test this minimum value, I then use the cryptography policy myself, which grants all my spies plus 1 level. Based on this, we saw all hit rates return to the previous values, but notably, recruit partisans stayed at 2%. Since recruit partisans was operating at level N5, which is -3 from the 3 polygraph spies, as well as -2 from the cryptography policy, increasing it 1 more level would bring it to N4, which is still only the 2% hit rate. Therefore, we can conclude that, similar to levels above level 6, you can go below level N4, but the lowest hit rate possible will still only be 2% regardless. Hitting these percentages should be quite rare though, since getting all these upgrades, especially the polygraph stack, probably isn't going to occur till pretty late in the game. But hopefully this gives you an idea of the range of success possible with spies. So with all that being said, let's recap. Today we learned all the possible levels and hit rates of spies, how siphoning funds works, that promotions boost all your spy levels by 1 level, that counterspying does not have a visible effect on spy rates, that the cryptography policy is visible and instant, and that the polygraph promotion is visible, instant, and can be stacked. So what does this all mean? Here I just wanted to quickly discuss general strategy around spies and try to incorporate what we learned into our game. So in my opinion, I will almost always elect to have spies perform offensive missions first. This is because upgrading spies should always be a huge priority. Getting the additional levels and upgrades just makes them that much more potent. Successfully counterspying is also no guarantee. Even if you somehow manage to guess where someone is placing their spy, it doesn't guarantee a capture. So if I can't guarantee a spy level without counterspying, I think it seems much less worth it. With good SimCity, you can cover a lot more ground, increasing your chances, but even still, I go with offensive missions first until you get promotions. I think gaining sources is pretty much always worth it unless you have a specialist master spy and it's super late in the game. Not only does it increase your chance of succeeding, it will also increase the buffer you have to counteract counterspying and any of the policies. In my opinion, you should always start with siphon funds as it has the highest chance of success, provides great concrete value, and also guaretees a promotion. Then, from there, I think you have a lot of options depending on the upgrades that you get. Just from playing experience though, I'd say that the best and most important missions seem to be siphoning funds, stealing technology, and disrupting rocketry. Great work heists and recruiting partisans can be valuable, though not as common as the others. The other abilities seem fairly situational to me, but can be valuable in the right situation. You can fit at least 5 spies, and potentially more if you get the intelligence agency, are playing as Catherine Medici, or are part of the Owls of Minerva secret society. I think my goal would be to try to get at least 1 or 2 main counter spies leave at home, hopefully with a combination of polygraph, surveillance, seduction, or quartermaster promotions. Unfortunately, I'm not so sure that the polygraph stack is a super viable strategy until much later in the game, when you get non-state actors. The rest of your spies I'd make offensive, but that might also depend on how the game is going. If you're ahead, maybe making more defensive ones might be the move. Given some of the relatively high hit rates of upgraded spies, especially with sources, I do think upgrades like Ace Driver, Disguise, and Linguist have value, and I think it doesn't hurt to get each spy one of these. With regards to policies, personally, I feel like crypto is a must-use when you get late into the game, but this may also depend on the level you're playing at. You can also use Machiavellianism, another strong policy, to gain 50% production towards spies and have your spy operations take 25% less time. Nuclear espionage is another policy that can increase the value of your spies, as you can now steal 2 tech boosts at a time. You also of course have non-state actors, which allows your spies to obtain any promotion. Finally, let's discuss escaping. In the event your spy is caught, there are 4 ways of escape. Escaping on foot is always available and is the safest option without a doubt. However, it's also the longest method, returning in 4 turns. Going by vehicle requires a commercial hub in the city you're escaping from and takes 3 turns while being a little bit more dangerous. Going by boat requires a harbor district in the city and takes 2 turns while being even more dangerous. And then finally, going by airplane requires an aerodrome and only takes 1 turn, but it'll be the most dangerous method. I didn't really do extensive testing around escapes as I found it too hard to trigger reliably, but I personally almost always just go by foot. I just don't want to risk losing my spy and would rather lose a couple of turns than have them be killed or captured. Having your spy be captured is particularly bad as they still take up a spy slot but are now a prisoner and have to be negotiated to get back. While I personally like this idea and mechanic, my issue with this is the fact that it basically results in you wishing that your spy is killed rather than captured, which is kinda silly. Your opponent, if they wanted, could hold the spy indefinitely, and that's a huge loss. Getting a spy back can be quite pricey, so I think it would have been cool to have an additional spy mission to trigger a jailbreak to get your spy back, or maybe have your captured spy be able to take a cyanide pill. On the other hand, maybe it'd be cool to be able to use captured spies for ourselves, but maybe they have a slight chance of double crossing you or something. I know none of this is possible now that Civ 6 updates are done, but one can dream for Civ 7, right? Anyway, in conclusion, spies are an incredibly powerful part of the game. They're way stronger than they've been in past Civ games and way more interesting with a huge variety of missions. They're really one of my favorite parts of Civ 6, and I think they're immensely important, particularly if you play on higher levels or in multiplayer. Hopefully you learned something new from this video. If not, let me know if there are any interactions with spies you're curious about, and maybe if I find the time, I'll do a part 2 to look more in depth at how some of these other missions and interactions work. And of course, if you made it this far, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel, and as usual, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace.